So we've had a question this morning about when you're balancing energy leaks, what do you do? And it's a subject that needs a bit more in-depth coverage. So I am going to run a masterclass on that, a couple of hours specifically on that, to cover it in much more depth, the theory behind what an energy leak is, and then what we do about it. But if we stick to the protocol, on page 4 of the ACMOS protocol, we have the environmental section. And in the environmental section, we have the titles: geobiological, ecological, and ambient. And if we have resonance on one of those, there is an energy leak in the system. And so we then move down the page to the middle section of that page, which is the energy leak protocol. And we know to find an essential oil and a color filter. So an energy leak requires two answers: the essential oil to restore the control of the hereditary vulnerability which led to the leak, and the color to seal the leak itself. And the frequency that you choose it on, or the setting on the antenna that you choose it on, varies depending on the nature of the leak, which is why you need to assess with your antenna whether you have a geobiological problem or an ecological or an ambient problem. If you have a geobiological problem, you use 8 to search the oils for the best solution, because that leak is affecting the person's ability to ground themselves.
So basically, can I speak?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So basically, you put your antenna on 8 if it's a geobiological leak, and then you go over your box of essential oils with the antenna on 8 and wait till it dips.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. And for the same type of leak, you choose a color filter, but you have the setting set to 9.1. So this is the exception to the rule. Normally we do all our questioning on 17.6, but when we have an energy leak, we have an exception to that rule so that we're specifically targeting that problem. Okay. If we have an ecological or an ambient leak, then the settings are different. Can any of you tell me what the settings are to research the oils for an ambient leak? And the ecological is the same as that. So, yes.
I'm looking at the book.
Yes. So 12. Yeah.
12.
So therefore, an ambient is all around us. So something that cuts that energy from above gives you an ambient energy leak. And so we use 12 to find the oil, to plug that hole in the energy system, and to regain control of the heredity aspects that made you vulnerable to that type of stress in the first place. And we use the color filter on which setting on the antenna for an ambient leak. Fiona, are you able to find that?
Yes. I think this is probably what I did. Okay. On an ambient leak, it's 7.8.
That's right. Yeah. So you find the color on 7.8. Now the leak will be leaving a trace on the body at the same frequency that you find the color, which is why the color seals the leak. So you can also search on the body on 7.8 for an ambient or ecological leak, or 9.1 for a geobiological leak, and find out where the leak is on the body. So that gives you more information. And it sometimes fits where the person has a scar, or it can fit with where there's some pain, or it could fit for some other reason that makes sense to them. So you can just ask with your antenna, is the leak on the head, on the throat, on the chest? It was on the chest. Is it on the front of the chest, the back of the chest? Is it on the right side, center, the left side? Left side, is it near the first rib, second rib, third rib? So you then have a very specific location, and you can take your antenna along that area of the body. If you don't know about anatomy, you could just use your antenna and scan. So you put it on to 7.8 for an ambient or an ecological leak, and you just scan across the body until it dips. So that's finding the leak, and then you go back after you've done your essential oil and your color, and you recheck to make sure there is no longer a response on the body, and then you know the leak is sealed. So that's a very potted way to do the energy leaks, which...
Can I just repeat that last sentence that you just said?
Okay. So you scan the body,
Yes.
To find the trace of the leak, you scan the body.
Yeah.
And then you do the application of the oil, whether it's Acmodynamize, and it's usually for a leak, Acmodynamize or place. If it's place, what question are we going to ask?
Can it be?
Yeah.
Yes, Mary?
Can it be replaced by an acmogram?
Yeah, excellent. So
Oh,
when
right.
place responds for any harmony, you ask whether it can be replaced with an acmogram, which then gives you a very, very specific barcode of information to the body. After you've applied the oil and the color, you
How
then
do you apply
scan
the
the body
colour?
again. The color through the hand.
Yes.
So
Oh,
you
through
use-
the hand. Okay. So you although you scan the body to see where the leak is coming from, that's just for a bit of information. You
Yes.
don't then put the color on that place or anything like that.
No, if you
And
put the
you-
color into the hand, it goes through the pericardium line,
Yeah, okay.
which is the gatekeeper between the energy body and the structural body or the working body. And so by putting it through the pericardium line and the intaking hand, the body will put that information where it needs to go, because the origin of the leak may not be where the leak is on the surface. Okay.
Good.
But you do go back to that area on the surface at the end of the closure of the energy leak sequence to check that the leak is no longer responding. So when you find it at the beginning, you're searching for an ambient leak on the body on 7.8. There's a dip. After you have applied an essential oil and the color, then you go back to the body and you look at the same area and make sure that there's no dip, so that you know that that leak has been resolved. Okay.
Yes.
So that's a very quick run through, but as I say, I am going to do it in much more depth and sort of a bit of the story of what an energy leak means and why we have them and
Well,
why it's not necessarily a bad thing.